right, welcome. We're about to start the last lesson of Unit 1. It's Unit 1, Section 7. If you're keeping track at home, you'll notice we skipped Section 6. That's on purpose. It has some material we don't deem necessary, so we're jumping into 7, which is midpoint and distance in the coordinate plane. Before we jump in, since this is the last lesson of the unit, we've got our first geometry test coming up. So very important stuff. Whether you're in person or My School Online virtual student, if you're A day, it's going to be Tuesday, which is a week from when I'm videoing this, August 18th. And the B day people, in person and online, you'll be taking it Wednesday, August, it's supposed to be a 19, August 19th. All right, so got that out of the way. Let's jump in and learn. Here we go. Here's your midpoint formula on a number line. If you got a segment AB, I hope you can see that at home. If it's, I tried to mark it in blue. I'll highlight it so you can see it better. Segment A to B. These would be coordinates on the number line. Instead of an x1 and an x2, those would be actual numbers. And just to find the midpoint, I know M is the midpoint because of the tick and the ticks telling me those are equal pieces. You would literally just take the first x coordinate, add the second x coordinate, divide by 2. You're like taking the average of the two coordinates, and that's your midpoint. Any questions on that? Again, just shoot me an email. Y'all doing a real good job with that. And moving on. Oh, while I got your attention, homework. Please, please, please submit it on the answer sheet Google form. And when you do, you're always in the top left corner. Usually the first two things I ask you is your name and, very importantly, the period that I have you, which class you're in. All these assignments come in, they're in alphabetical order, they're not in order by class, so when me or my grader is trying to find out where to put your grade, we need that period number. If you don't know, if you're virtual and you don't know which period you're in, it should be in your PowerSchool schedule, or shoot me an email. I'll be glad to tell you. But it saves us a lot of time with the grading, just logistically, to get your grade from your Google form that you've turned in or document into PowerSchool. We kind of need that period. All right, so make sure you tell me what period you are. I'm literally starting with the assignment for this lesson 1-7. Starting with this one, I'm going to start taking off points if you leave the period off. And you're thinking, what's the big deal? It is kind of a big deal when I got 169 students all submitting me assignments to the same place. So just help me out, put that name and that period on there, and everything will be fine. All right, thanks. So that takes care of that. And that's when it's on a number line. It's pretty easy. We'll probably do an example right here. Oh, here's the midpoint formula in the coordinate plane. So in the coordinate plane, you don't have the luxury of just a number line. You have to do the x and the y coordinate to find the midpoint. All right? So it's just adds a step. Instead of just adding two numbers dividing by 2, you got to do it twice. You got to do it for the x coordinate, and you'll see this was what it was just on the last screen when we just had a number line. You add the first x, second x, divide by 2. That'll be the x coordinate of your midpoint. And then you add your y coordinate plus your other y coordinate, divide by 2, and that'll be the y coordinate for your midpoint. So pretty easy stuff, just adding two numbers and dividing by 2, and that's how we do that. And here's the midpoint. Back to going on a straight up number line. Some of you are saying, could I just sort of count and work my way in, start on one end? Yes, you can, but again, if I give you two numbers that are really far apart, you won't want to do that. So use the actual formula. And here's how it works. So the first x coordinate plus the second x coordinate, and that's what this x sub 1 and x sub 2 mean. There's nothing magical. These are not exponents. They're literally subscripts, and they're just telling you the first x and the second x. So it doesn't really matter the order because, like we said, segments, same distance that way as they are this way. So they want to know the midpoint of AB. A is on -4, so I'm going to put -4 plus the second x coordinate, which is somewhere here between 8 and 10. I think most people know the number between 8 and 10 is 9. So I add those together and I literally divide by 2, and that'll be the midpoint. -4 and +9, that would be 5. Divided by 2 would be 2.5, or some people like calculators would have 2.5. So the midpoint of segment AB is right there at 2.5. So here's 2, there's 3, so it'd be somewhere right about here. That'd be the midpoint of that segment. All right, moving on. Again, remember to pause if I get going pretty fast. Okay, now here's one that's in the coordinate plane, so we're not just on a number line now. We're actually in a whole coordinate plane. So we got two coordinates now. We got the x coordinate and the y coordinate. The procedure's the same. You just do it for the x's and you do it for the y's. All right. So they're giving us a little review, reminding us that we need to be able to plot points. So we're trying to find the midpoint of EF. They've graphed it for us, but they didn't just tell us the points are going to make us work for that, so we can do that. We'll do F first just because he's over closer to the left. F seems to be located at 1, 2 on the x-axis, and then down, so that means negative. Down 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2, -4 is F's coordinate. E is way over here, so E is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 7, 5 is his coordinates. All right. Now the formula, again, I'll show that first step. The midpoint is the first x plus the second x divided by 2. And then for the y coordinates, the same procedure. First y plus the second y divided by 2, and we'll just fill in. So my first x, I'm a left to right kind of guy. You know, like you read a sentence in a book from the left to the right, I read my line segment the same way. So I'm going to say 2 plus 7 for the x coordinate, 2 plus 7 divided by 2. And then the y coordinate would be -4 plus 5. -4 plus 5. They're not really doing us any favors on these numbers. Divide that by 2. Looks like both of them are going to come out to be fractions or decimals. But they don't scare us. We're in high school now. We can handle that. So we've got 9 divided by 2 for the x coordinate. And here, this says I owe somebody $4, but I have $5. So imagine that. I got $5 in my hand. I owe somebody $4, so I give them 4. I still got $1 divided by 2. That's my y coordinate. For a final answer of 9 divided by 2 would be like 4.5 or 4.5 if you're a decimal kind of person. And 1/2 is just 1/2 or 0.5. So the midpoint would be at 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and then up a half. So right there, there's your midpoint of segment FE. Right there. Any questions? All right. Pause and ask your neighbor or send me a email. All right. Moving on. Okay. Finding an endpoint. The geometry book, I think, does a horrible job of this. You can look it up. It uses a bunch of algebra and gobbledygook like that, and you can do it that way. Some people might like that way. I just kind of find the difference, and I think it's much easier the way I'm going to explain it. But my way, you do have to sort of pay attention to what's going on. So here's what they got. They want to find an endpoint J if K is located. It's the midpoint. It's located at -1, 2, and L is located at 3, -5. That's the other endpoint. They want us to find the missing endpoint. So now, you know that if this is the midpoint, then the distance from here to here is the exact same distance as it is from here to here. That's what it means to be in the middle. Your distances from the ends are the same. So what we got to do is just find out how much it changes from here to here and do that same change from here to get where we want to be. All right, here's what I mean by that. So everybody look closely before you start writing. You can draw the picture, pause if you want to draw the picture first. So I'm going to do the x-coordinate first. So from 3 to -1, that is a decrease of 4. So I'm going to write a little -4. To go from 3 to -1, you're going to the left 4 units. So to be fair, to get to the answer, I should then go from -1 and I should go left 4 more units. And as you know, if I started at -1 and I went left 4 more units, I would be at -5. So the x-coordinate of that endpoint is -5. And I promise you, if you look in the book how they explain it, this is way, way easier. All right, like I said, if I ever get trapped on a deserted island and they say, Metcalfe, the only way off this deserted island is to write a geometry book, I'd probably write one and it'd be a pretty good one. It'd be a lot better than some of the ones we've used over the years, some of their explanations. Whew. All right. So we're still not done though, because we still need to know the y-coordinate. So I'm going to do that in a pretty gold color. Let's see. So we start off at -5 as the endpoint for y, and then the midpoint for y is 2. So if I'm at -5 and I jump up to +2, that's a jump of +7, right? Remember, I was way down at -5. I came all the way up 5 just to get to 0, but then I went 2 past 0, so I went up 5 and 2 more to get to there, so that's 7. So to get over here, I need to go up 7 more, so 2 plus 7 more puts me at 9. So this endpoint, J, is located at -5, 9. All right? I think I'm going to have you guys do one by yourself. Now that you've seen the procedure, you try this one. All right? Calculate the coordinates for D if E is the midpoint of DF. All right, so I don't know what D's coordinates are. They tell me E's the midpoint. He's at -6, 4. F is at -5, -3. Again, find the change from here to here. Do the same change to get to your answer. And then also for Y. So I'll give you a few seconds. And you pause it at home, of course. And let's go. All right. Hope you have a good answer. And watch to see if you did it correctly. Let's do this in a pretty Charlestown blue color. Okay. So we'll do the x-coordinate first. So I was here at -5. I go to the midpoint, which is at -6. So it looks like I dropped 1 more unit, or I went to the left 1 more unit. So to get to the other endpoint, I got to go left 1 more unit. And if I'm at -6 and go 1 more unit to the left, I end up at -7. So hopefully everybody had -7 for that one. And now the y-coordinate. So I started at -3, and I jumped up pretty high. I went from -3 all the way up to 0, and I kept on going all the way to +4. If you did that, that would be a change of +7, or up 7 units. So now to be fair, I got to go up 7 more to get to the answer. So if I'm at 4 and I go up 7 more, that would put me at +11. So the answer to D's coordinates are -7, 11. Yeah. All right. Probably don't have to write this, but in lesson 1-3, we learned how to find the length of a segment on a number line. All right. So that was kind of easy. How to find the length of a segment. We took this coordinate and this coordinate. We subtracted. Remember, it's always the difference. We subtracted and we took the absolute value. Pretty easy stuff on a number line. But I have a feeling it's not going to be on a number line on this next screen. Let's take a look. However, if the points are not lined up perfectly horizontally, like on a number line where you can literally do that, or vertically, like maybe on a thermometer, one of those old-timey thermometers, if they're not lined up vertically, but they're more diagonal. You have to use the distance formula. Dun 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 dun. But here it is. It looks kind of complicated. Look at that. To find the distance between 2 points on the coordinate plane, you have to take the square root of this big quantity underneath. It's the second x coordinate minus the first x coordinate, quantity squared, plus the second y coordinate minus the first y coordinate, quantity squared. And like I said at the beginning, all square rooted. All right? So it looks complicated. It's not super complicated. It's going to drive the people who write sloppily. You're going to struggle with this because you're going to lose a negative sign here and there. You see negative signs here and here, and you got to square stuff. And if you're one of these people who keeps all your ducks in a row, it's going to be fine. You just got to get the system down, and you'll be fine. It's those people who just kind of write stuff everywhere, and it's not very neat and organized. You guys are going to struggle with this because there's a few steps, no doubt about it, but they're all manageable stuff. There's some subtraction, there's a square, there's some addition, there's a square root. Matter of fact, I probably should have a calculator right now, because we're going to square root some stuff here in just a minute. So hopefully everybody's jotting this. So literally, here's when they're not horizontal, when they're not vertical, you can't just simply count from A to B to get that distance. It's the distance formula. All right. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to copy that, especially this. This is the important stuff right here. And we're probably going to try one on this screen. Absolutely. What is the distance between U, who's located at -7.5, and V, who's located at 4, -3? And this D with a little tenth in parentheses, that means they want the distance to the nearest tenth, meaning there's a good chance this is not going to work out to be a nice smooth whole number. So just round it to the nearest tenth, and when that happens, I'll talk about what they mean by that. So I'm going to, just for practice, I'm going to write the magical formula. It's the square root, remember, of the second x minus the first x, quantity squared, plus the second y coordinate minus the first y coordinate, quantity squared. Now you're saying to yourself, Mr. Metcalfe, I don't see any of these markings in what they gave me. All right, there's nothing magical to this. I mean, literally, this is just helping me organize. It's telling me the second x coordinate minus the first x coordinate. So how do you know which is which? The order they give them to you, all right? So they gave me this point first, U, so I'm going to literally label this my first x, or x sub 1 if you want to be technical. And this is my first y, so that would be y sub 1. And then they gave this point to me second. That's all that means. There's nothing magical about the 2 and the 1. They literally just gave me this one second, so I'm going to call that x sub 2. And this -3 here is going to be y sub 2. So I've got them labeled, and now I just got to put them into this sort of complicated looking formula, but it's not that bad. But again, keep track of every little minus and subtraction sign, because that's where you'll get confused and lost. All right, so we draw this again, but now we're going to replace these with the actual numbers pertaining to this problem. So again, it's the second x minus the first x. So I'm going to say the second x is 4 minus the first x, which right off the bat, right out of the gate, they give us a net negative, which turns into a double negative, which I'm going to have to square, plus, now we're going to do the same thing for the y, second y minus first. The second y is -3 minus the first y, which in this case is a +5, so no double negative there, at least not in the sense of a minus a negative situation. Some people say, well, isn't that a double negative? That can sort of be a double negative, but yeah. Okay, so first step, is everybody cool with what I just did? I replaced the variables with their actual values, and now I'm proceeding on. Okay, square root sign again, and notice how Mr. Metcalfe is making everything neat, keeping it orderly. less chance of making an error. Okay, so you heard me gasp a moment ago. That's because of this double negative. I'm going to circle that. That's going to become a positive. So this is literally 4 plus 7, which is 11. So I'm going to show this baby step. This is 11 squared plus, and again, this is like me owing two people money. Let's say I owe Miss Cook $3. I owe Mr. Cox $5. They team up and they say, hey, Metcalfe, what's all this borrowing money stuff? And so I owe them $8 total, which then I need to square. All right? Everybody doing pretty good? You guys at home doing all right? Okay. So now, 11 squared. A lot of classic mistakes on this. A lot of people think this 11 squared means 11 times 2. It does not mean that at all. It means 11 times 11, right? 11 times 11, which is $1.21 if my math skills are up to par. And then negative 8 to the second does not mean negative 8 times 2. It means negative 8 times negative 8, which turns into a positive 64. All right? So I got 121 plus the 64 still to be square rooted. So I add those together and I get the square root of 185. I quickly do a mental rundown in my head of the perfect squares I know, and that's not one of them. So we're going to get some kind of weird number. So save time, I'll just grab my calculator on my phone here. Hopefully I can get to it pretty quick. Calculator, bam, there it is. So now I need the square root of 185. So depending on your calculator, they vary. On mine's, I have to turn mine sideways to get that square root button. So I find it and I do square root of 185, square root, and it gives me something 13.60147 blah blah blah. All right. So if you remember at the beginning, they said they wanted it rounded to the nearest 10th place. So what that means is I chop off your ones place. This is your 10th place. That's where they want me to cut it. So I put a big bar right there to cut it. Now before I just erase all this stuff, I do have to look at the first number that got cut off. And if you remember your rounding rules, if this number or digit, I should say, or this place value is a 5 or higher, you round this up. But if it's less than 5, you leave it the same. So it's a 0, so that's the smallest one. So my final answer would just be the 13.6. All right, there's no units included, so I guess the answer would be they're about 13.6 units apart. Now I have a feeling you guys are going to do a problem on the next screen, and we'll see how that goes. So let's take a look. All right, BT has endpoints B at -2, +14, and T at 3, -1. What is the length of BT to the nearest 10th? All right, so you guys try that one. And again, pause the tape. Tape. I said tape. Pause the video. Yeah, I'm from the 80s. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. I hope you got a juicy answer. Hope you consulted that distance formula. Let's jump in and solve this and see if you got it right. Rounded to the nearest 10th. You know, it could be a whole number. I doubt it. They don't usually come out to be, but sometimes they do. I'm freestyling again today. I'm just living like Larry, man. I am just going for it on these lessons. I have no notes in front of me. Didn't even have a calculator at that time. I had to reach in my pocket, get my cell phone. Yeah, so we're just seeing what happens, man. I could be making mistakes here, but I got my lucky Blackhawks tie on tonight. They got a big game tonight. My Rangers got knocked out. So we're going with my second favorite team, the Blackhawks, tonight. In action. Don't stay up and watch it though. Tape it. Record it, because it comes on at like 11:30 tonight. So yeah, you don't want to stay up for that. You got school tomorrow. So record it and watch it tomorrow. We're in Indiana, so ain't nobody gonna tell you the score and ruin it for you. Okay, so I'm gonna show that baby step again, just because the more times you practice it, the more permanent it stains on your brain. So it's, again, the square root of this big long quantity of the second x-coordinate minus the first, quantity squared, plus the second y-coordinate minus the first, quantity squared, and like I said at the beginning, the whole thing rooted. And again, there's no magic to the x1, x2, all that kind of stuff. I literally just go by the order they give them to me. And they gave me this point first, so he's going to be the x1 and the y1. They gave me this point second, so he's going to be the x2 and the y2. And I just put them into the formula. All right? Put them in correctly, though, because there's minus signs and there's probably going to be some negatives on the coordinates. So you got to keep all that straight. So here we go. And hopefully you all did this. Hopefully you all have a juicy answer right over here, rounded to the nearest tenth. That's how you should be doing. I just noticed it said stop. It's our last screen. Excuse me. I got excited there for a second. Yeah, man, we're flying through this lesson. Okay, let's finish it up, though. All right, so second x-coordinate minus first. So I'm going to find the second x-coordinate. I've labeled it 3. And I highly recommend you label them because you can get confused. You know, you're in a hurry. You get excited about the game tonight or whatever. And you forget which one did I make the first, which one I make the second. So I always label them. So the second one minus the first would be 3 minus negative 2. You can almost count on them throwing a double negative in there. It just makes the problem more juicy, makes you have to take, be detailed with your calculations and stuff. So just be prepared for that. You're probably going to have some double negatives, probably. All right, second y minus first. Second y is negative 1 minus the first y, which is 14, quantity squared. Okay, here we go. Back in action. Got the double negative. I'm going to highlight that for you guys again. There's a double negative. That's going to be a positive. So this is really going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5 squared, plus negative 1 and negative 14, that's like owing two people money again. So say I owe my wife $1 and I owe my son $14. Imagine that. I owe my wife $1 and my son $14. They'd say, hey, Dad, what's up? Honey, what's up? You owe us $15 total. So that's going to be negative 15 squared. So I better put that in parentheses so there's no confusion. Negative 15 squared, and then I'm going to square root the whole thing. All right. Well, 5 squared. Please don't say 10. That's not 10. That's 5 times 5, which is 25, plus negative 15 squared. Now, some of y'all are probably picking up, the negative really doesn't matter because we're talking about distance. Distance can never be negative. We said that in our early lesson. So that's why we do all this squaring stuff. It makes the negatives go away, and then we square root it to counterbalance that. So negative 15 squared, of course, means negative 15 times negative 15, which that's going to be, what, 2 1/4, 225. And again, please check behind me. I'm freestyling today because I'm feeling in the zone. 25 and 225, that'd be the square root of 250. And again, I'm reaching my calculator because 250 is not a perfect square. I know that for sure, so I clear this out. I hit, I got to turn it sideways to get those fancy buttons. Oh, fancy buttons are sideways. I don't know if y'all learned that. It took me forever to learn that about a cell phone. You know, you got your regular calculator when you do it vertical, and you want those fancy buttons. You turn it sideways. I don't know if you can see that. You get the fancy stuff. So I'm going to hit 250, and I'm going to hit the square root button. Be careful, though, because my eyes are bad because I'm kind of old. So there's a cube root button on there, too. You don't want to use that. That'll throw you off. Hit the square root button, and on that one I get 15.811.388 blah 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 forever. All right. So again, they said round it to the nearest tenth. So I cut it off after the 10th spot. So here we go. There are 8 sitting in the 10th spot. So I chop it right there. And before I throw all this stuff away, I look at that first number that got chopped off. It's a 1, which again, 1 is small, so I don't round up. I just leave it the same. So my final answer is going to be 15.8 units. All right. Man, good job today, guys. I hope it was a good job. I hope I explained that pretty well. Main thing is keeping your P's and Q's in order. There's not really P's and Q's. That's just something old people say. Keep everything in order, and you'll be fine on these. And if you're not, shoot me an email. I'll see you next time.